What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Quarters Podcast. We have covered quarterbacks and running backs in the 2026 class over the last couple weeks. Now we're at wide receivers. And now this class, similar to kind of the other groups, like, they have some question marks, but this one has probably the most question marks. If you go out there and look at a top 10 2026 list for wide receivers, you're probably going to get 10 wildly different rankings out there, just because across the board, it is a minefield of just question marks after question marks. So this will be fun as we dive into these guys. As always, we're going to be diving in kind of the top 5 or 6 guys, but we're going to be talking about, we're going to try to get to at least 13, 14 maybe today, just kind of cover a little bit, just to get you guys ready for the next draft cycle. And then if you're in some Dynasty leagues or Devy leagues, those type of things, we can get you caught up there. So stick with us after the intro. Diving into the first guy, we like to start off a little hot in this one, some of the top guys first, and kind of work our way down. First one is a guy that, some people really like, Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State, wide receiver. Some are kind of hit or miss with him in terms of maybe his injuries, right? His injuries history and all that. But last year was his real breakout, right? Obviously, he transferred to Arizona State. He had 12 games last year. He had 75 catches, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, looked really good, then missed. After down the stretch of the season, he missed the rest of the year with an injury. But up until then, he had an 80.3 offensive grade, 83.3 receiving grade, yards per out run, just over 3, which, hey, if you like to see that, especially. And then just from, when you're looking at him from a film-based perspective, what are some things he does well? Elite route runner, really strong after the catch. I think that's probably his best strength when you're watching the tape. I really love what he can do after the catch. And he has to do it a lot because he gets underthrown a lot. So he has to figure out ways to kind of collect yards. We talked about Sam Levitt a couple weeks ago. And he's a really good athlete. I do think that from an athletic perspective, he's going to have that. But I think the biggest knock on him is the injuries, right? So he's definitely had he's had some knee injuries, right? And then I don't know, they talked about last year, maybe shoulder possibly and knee injury. He's had some surgeries there. So that's something to note because I do think NFL teams are going to take, notice of that. And then the physicality point, I think maybe that's part of the injury stuff. Maybe just last year was his really first year. He did have a freshman year where he had 470 yards and 4 touchdowns, but we'll see how it progresses this year. I'm going to head to Christian first because I know he likes him probably. I don't know where Randy's at, but I know Christian likes Jordyn Tyson and thinks he could have been up there in this class. So what do you feel about Jordyn?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's strong pretty much across the board. Like even the physicality stuff, like there are times on film where he gets into guys and he can break away from physical corners. I think one thing that's cool is he does have some inside-outside versatility. So if you want to line him up in the slot, I think he can excel there. I think he's an excellent route runner, just one of the best in the class. I think if you look at where this wide receiver class was this year, I think there's a chance that he pushes for a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But down the stretch, you missed some time. I think the medicals are going to be the main question mark with him. I think if he can get on the field and continue to produce in the way that he did, teams are going to be super enticed by him. But with the extensive injury history, it could cause some issues. It could be one where, we're in April next year and we say, oh, Jordyn Tyson locked and loaded inside the top 15, and he falls to the back of the first round or early second round because of injuries, kind of like whoever the corner was, that Will Johnson from Michigan. So could see something like that, but I think he's excellent in catch point situations, which you don't always see from 6'1" guys. I think he can go up and get it. And I guess my one thing is like, he's creative after the catch, but I'd like to see a little bit more creativity after the catch as he continues to grow. But once again, that could be due to injuries as well, where he's kind of tentatively cutting, and he lacks a little bit of elusiveness in the open field. But overall, he's my wide receiver one kind of comfortably. He's the only one that I feel should be a first round pick based on last year's film.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I mean, Christian knows and Kevin is learning. The route running is going to be one of the biggest things for me, along with size, just because, like, for me, he's a Z receiver. He's just not, because he's average height, average size. He's not going to get up to that X billing for me. Obviously, you could play it, but I think Z is the perfect because it gives you that inside-outside versatility, and that route running is so good. He does a good job of tempoing routes and just being really efficient and clean out of the breaks, understands how to use the leverage against the defenders, does a good job going upfield as well. Pretty good yards after catch, obviously, but yards per catch is always great too. I think I have him he averaged over 14 yards per catch last year. He just tracks the ball well deep. It stacks DBs and gets clean releases and uses that second gear really quickly. And that's where he transitions upfield very, very fast on those yak opportunities. But I do see what Christian's saying in that too, where he's very we see it probably like 6 times last year at least on just drag routes where it's just immediately a little exponential curve upfield and then there's no movement past that. But it was fine because he still broke away for 50 yards, but there could have been a little bit bigger opportunity there. So stuff like that in the open field, we want to see a little bit better. I think he did a decent job with contested catches with the size. There's just some things to clean up, and the physicality, like I don't think it's detrimental. Like I agree with you, Christian, on that, but it is not great. Like the functional strength, any physical corner does give him it doesn't take him out of the game, but it makes him work harder. Like that, and that's always going to kind of happen, but you could very well tell it's kind of the concerns where we had with like CD, where he was always in the slot or like 3 yards back and the corners couldn't touch him. Like if we got that for Jordyn Tyson, he's going to kill everyone. But whenever the physicality is there, and that was the concern with CD, obviously that it hasn't mattered at the NFL. He's shown he can do it. I just want to see that next step from Tyson to be that locked in first round, but he's there. And then he had all the big games you want. He's a competitive blocker, even if he isn't the most physical receiver. There's a lot of good things. The biggest thing is just a little bit more physical, and we need a full season out of you. A full season out of him and no improvements, he's a first-round receiver, at least the back end.
Yeah. And I think because of the class, right, I do think – I mean, some guys are going to pop off, but I do think by default right now it's okay to say he's a first-round guy. I think the one thing that I love about his ability to kind of go vertical is his ball tracking. It's pretty good. Like you see that with him, like – that to me, he can ball track well. He gets up the field quickly if he doesn't get bumped. You love that about him too. But yeah, he's got bursts and he does those things really well. Contested catch, he's there. Do you guys have any comps for him? Or Christian, what are you going to say? Because I got a comp. I want to see if you guys like it or not. You probably won't.
Well, go ahead with your comp. I was just going to bring some more stats to the table. So
okay, let's get that board shit out of the way. So let's Jerry Jeudy. What do you think about Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I think he has more physicality than Jeudy did as a prospect.
Okay.
And Randy loved Jerry Jeudy's route running. I don't think Tyson's quite there as far as
not as a route running thing, but just like maybe in terms of where he's at, maybe play strength, maybe some of that little things that we talked about.
Yeah.
I could very easily see someone on X putting a just compilation of just very similar players from Jerry Jeudy's NFL career to what Jordyn Tyson did last year.
Yeah.
I mean, with the Browns, he had at least 2 or 3 of those drag routes for 60 yards this last year.
Yeah. Yeah. Their play style is very similar. The stat I was going to bring to the table, he was 4th in college football last year in yards per route run against man. So he's a man beater. He can, if you try to just like press him, he's probably going to beat you. He had a 90.3 receiving grade against man, and his yards per route run his total was 4.63, which if you're a data nerd, Jay Stein would love to see that number overall. He wasn't as good against zone coverage. So we'll see if he can improve in that area. But 8 of his touchdowns came against man coverage, and he kind of just cooked up everyone who tried to guard him one-on-one.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next guy. Makai Lemon, USC wide receiver. We're pretty big fans of Makai. We've liked Makai. Christian liked Makai high school. He actually played corner in high school at Modern Day and wide receiver. So we always were like, hey, we like this kid. He's athletic. Hey, what can he do? Is he going to develop? And it seemed like that first year definitely took some time. Like he was learning it. They were kind of going through transitions there. He 6 catches, 88 yards, no touchdowns, pretty much redshirted basically that first year. And then this next year, he put on some weight. He's sitting at 195. 5 at 5'10" or 5'11", where you like to see. And he really did well down the stretch. 52 catches, 764 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But saved a few of his best games for last. Like after basically Maryland, after week 8, he did great. Maryland, he had 89 yards. Rutgers, 134, 70 against Washington. And then he finished really strong against UCLA, 2 catches, 69 yards. But then Notre Dame, 9 catches, 133 yards. And in Texas A&M, 3 catches, 99 yards. Looked great. Like just really kind of came through for them down the stretch. 83.9 offensive grade, 85.3 receiving grade, yards per out run over 3, which you like to see there too. And really, if you like data and metrics and all of that, he hits a ton of metrics out there. I mean, when you go into the PFF numbers and everything there, he's basically in the 95th percentile when you're looking at single coverage, receiving grade. Like these are the things that he can do really well. And that's because he's athletic. Like that's to me is where he kind of wins. He's a very, very good route runner. I think I think he can get even better because I don't think he's gotten enough reps there. So that's exciting to see. Inside outside versatility for sure. Like when you're watching him, he could definitely get moved around, and he will. He's going to get moved around that offense. And really good hands. Like, and I think that comes from being a corner as well. Like he was sticky too. In high school, if you watch his tape, man, him playing corner was a lot of fun. He could be a legit corner too. Like when you see him and you see him out there, he caught everything. So that's a big one. Again, one common theme you're going to see with some of these guys though, physicality will bother them. Like that's pretty much, there's a lot of guys on this list that we might talk about, but physicality is going to be a problem. He does work best underneath and in, right? So that's one of those things is like, hey, is the physicality stuff going there? And intermediate, excuse me. So that's part of his tape. Like that's where you see, but when context-wise at USC right now, you know, him and Jacoby Lane are probably wide receiver 1 and 2, with Zachariah Branch leaving, Deuce Robinson leaving, those guys coming out. What that looks like this year, I don't know, but I do think Lemon is the best receiver on the team, and he probably should earn the most targets. We'll see what Lane does this year as well, who's in his class. But, Randy, what's your take on Lemon?
This one felt just more play style like Jerry Jeudy than Tyson to me, simply because what we see is a great route runner. The only hang up on that Jeudy comp for me is the route tree isn't fully there yet, and that's going to come with a full season, you know, fully focused receiver again this year. He just needs a little bit more development there, but what we just see just such smooth and explosive movements. It's just not the long speed to be a consistent like deep threat at the next level as like a one option thing, which is good because if you're just a burner deep, you're not going to succeed all the time in the NFL. It depends on the offense. I think he can succeed in pretty much every offense because he is so deadly in that short to intermediate, and he does do well in the deep ball with the ball tracking, very natural hands. He plucks the ball very well. I think he would be, you know, again, he can play both sides, and I think he'd be one of the most fun slot corners because he's going to be attacking the ball more than anyone else in that position. Yeah. I just think he shows a lot of good concentration all the time. He's very good after the catch. Again, without the elite speed, he is very shifty. He makes all the ankle-breaking moves that you need to get out there. It's a little bit of we like both these receivers, but they do things differently. They win differently, and that's going to be a who likes it best in the NFL type thing. But he reminds me more of just a guy that's going to be on every team and just consistently win and work well going anywhere. If they need him to play inside, I think he's going to be able to do that really well. I think another guy I think is more of a Z receiver, so he can go inside and out. Zone coverage, he dominates from at least everything I've seen so far. He's always finding the soft spot. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend as long as the offense allows it. And that goes back to what Kevin's point is. We just want to see what's allowed of this offense this year and what's allowed of Lemon, because he has potential here to really shoot up the board and take the wide receiver one spot for me. I think he's very, very smart. He clearly is a hard worker, and I think he's going to if we can get a little bit better frame for him, he's going to be an all-around kind of wide receiver, in my opinion. That's just the biggest thing, and a little bit more of a route tree, because the frame stuff really is a frame, and elite speed is really just his knocks, and it knocks like every little thing you could think of kind of thing. Is the best way I can say that. So if we can just get a little bit more consistently functionally strong, I'm not saying put on 15 pounds, but if you can just you can convert and put on 5 pounds of muscle, he's going to be doing a world of difference out there.
Yeah. The physicality component definitely makes me a little bit nervous, but when I watch his film, like he reminds me a lot of Josh Downs when I was watching Josh Downs when he was a prospect, in that like this kid is not afraid to go across the middle and pluck balls and anticipate hits. But when you throw a physical corner on him, like you can push him off the route pretty easily. That's why I think he lived in the slot pretty regularly last year. I think the reason we talk about his inside-outside versatility is because when they threw him outside, he was able to win. Like he only had, I think, like 55, 56 snaps out there, but he was able to win as long as the coverage wasn't super sticky and super physical. I agree with Randy. I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight, but man, his work against zone coverage is probably it's definitely the best in the class. He understands exactly where defenders are going to be and where the windows are for his quarterback to deliver him the football. I think that's an underrated aspect of his game. He's an excellent yak player too. I think, Randy talked about it. He might not have a top gear, but he's super, super shifty. And I do think that despite struggling against physical players, I think he breaks tackles fairly well. It's pretty interesting in that sense, but I think he has the best hands in the class. I think he can go up and pluck it from anywhere. So I think he's one of those super quarterback friendly, probably living in the slot, but it can bounce outside types of players. I don't know if he's 5'11" either. I think that's where I'm like, I don't know. It might be like 5'9.5", 195, and that's where I get a little bit. And maybe 190. So we'll see.
So yeah, I'm glad you said the Downs comp, because the dumb one I came up with, which, fairness, I'm stupid. And it's a little bit of helmet scouting. I think I couldn't come up with anything else on the spot. He's like Amon-Ra if he didn't come from that family. He didn't come from like a world strongest man champion dad to pack on the muscle and be more compact. Doesn't have the NFL bloodlines to be a little bit more smooth and refined as a route runner and better release packages. But all the other stuff, the framework, he'd be a better blocker, I think, if he didn't think he was going to get rocked out there. But so that's why it's a bad cup. But like the things that make Amon-Ra so good in just the pass game is what I kind of saw from the tape. But Downs is a much better comp. So I was very glad you said that.
I have a even crazier one, because I was like, I was watching him, I was thinking, man, this could be, if he puts on weight, and I know that you're gonna like roll your eyes here, but Steve Smith Jr. Like I love the way he plays, and if he can put on that weight, and then possibly when he retires, I guess go and do some crazy things off the field, he could be Steve Smith Jr. Like that could be what we're looking at here, because he has that talent. I think the thing with Makai that I don't think a lot of people talk about is, of the guys in this group, like he's the youngest. I think he's got to be one of the youngest receivers.
Tate, maybe,
but
him, Carnell, or it's just those two, I think.
But I would just say, from experience wise, because he played corner so much in high school too, like we haven't really seen, he's played basically 2 years ish of wide receiver at this level. So it's interesting. It's just fun to see in terms of like, hey, he has probably the highest ceiling. That's why I like that. The only other thing I saw when I was going through the kind of some of the stuff that he did, he faced press only 85 of his 262 snaps. So if he faces a little bit more, I think that's one of those things. But he can be a zone buster. Like he can do those things. Like he can do kind of the fun stuff there. And he's a fun day 2 kid. Like if he goes day 2, that's a good wide receiver to have on your roster there. All right, let's talk about another guy. He's transferring to Auburn. Auburn has a freaking fantastic wide receiver room. And Singleton is going there. Eric Singleton, he's going from Georgia Tech over to Auburn. At Georgia Tech, had a very fine 2 years. His freshman year, he kind of popped off, 48 catches, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then last year, he had 56 yards, 56 catches, 754 yards, and 3 touchdowns. In a Georgia Tech offense that was, up and down consistency-wise. They had Haynes King there as quarterback. Didn't necessarily have an identity, but decided, hey, I'm going to do the transfer portal. Finishes at 71.3 offensive grade, receiving grade 70.7, 2.23 yards per out run in terms of what the numbers look like a little bit for you guys. And there's a lot of guys that like in this class that kind of, mirror what these wide receivers can do. Very good yak guy. Catches it, can go. He's fast, a really good athlete. He might be, when you're looking at like just what the combine looks like, he might test the best. Excellent hands too. I think when you're looking at him from just the PFF metrics, the drops aren't there. Like he does a really, really good job of holding on to that football, especially in space, and when he's in traffic. I think he does it well both ways. But he does struggle sometimes off the line with physicality. Like that is, again, the theme of this group. And, I don't know how much it was downfield or not. So when you're thinking of like, he needs to see more downfield, I don't know if it was the team he was playing for. Haynes King struggles pushing the ball downfield. In my opinion, he's more of a kind of a West Coast quarterback, dink and dunker type guy, which fits Singleton in terms of what they were using him as. But we'll need to see that. Whether he does that this year at Auburn, I don't know. Jackson Arnold will push the ball downfield if he's the quarterback. And so that's something that you're going to see there. But what was your takeaway from Singleton, Christian, as you're kind of diving into him?
I mean, he's probably the fastest player in this class. Until we talk about Eugene Wilson, because I think he's actually the fastest player in this class, but he's an honorable mention. We won't get to him too much, but I think that matters because I think that's part of the reason Georgia Tech used him in the way that they did. They needed playmakers, they needed speed, they needed explosives, and getting the ball into his hands was the best way to do it. Like you just talked about, though, when they do throw downfield to him, I think he tracks the ball well, but there's just not enough evidence of him being a receiver that wins downfield regularly. He's fine in the short areas and in the intermediates. I think he's a good route runner. I don't think he's a world-beating route runner at this point. I think we could definitely see some growth there. I think his releases, whether that be because he was facing press a little bit more than a guy like Makai Lemon, or maybe it's just he needs to work on it because it needs refined, but the releases kind of bothered me a little bit. But outside of that, I think this is a good player that I think is going to get a ton of run with Auburn. I think Auburn is going to probably throw the ball more than they have in a very long time with their wide receiver core. I mean, Singleton is probably the third best wide receiver on their team, maybe second, but probably third in my opinion. So I'm just curious what the target share looks like. That said, you throw the ball more, I think we could see a 1,000-yard season from him. I think Jackson Arnold is still a good quarterback despite popular belief. And I think they're going to get creative in getting him the ball. I think this is your easy completion person that maybe Jackson Arnold didn't have at Oklahoma last year, and maybe Auburn didn't have in general last year. So getting him on screens and pop passes and bubble screens and things like that. I said screens twice, but I meant just tunnel screens and bubble screens. But I think that's going to be his route to showing off that yards after catch ability. But we need to see more downfield. We need to see more physicality. I'd like to see him put on 5 pounds, and that's going to be a common theme with some of these smaller guys, but he's super dynamic. I'm excited to see what it looks like this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's a track star. I mean, he's a track star we haven't seen make plays downfield consistently, and I don't think it's his fault. I mean, we kind of went over that a lot already. I think he does a great job. I don't think he's a good route runner. That's my only pushback on Chris. He's above average, but we just haven't seen any tree from him really. Besides like a vertical tree with, tempo and stems and just kind of cutting off the routes. Obviously when you're that fast and you're getting open on your first 3 steps with pure speed, when there isn't obviously a physical press on you, I don't see a lot of a release package from him or anything. But when you're getting explosion and separation of those first 3 steps, you don't have to be super nuanced. And I think switching from ACC to SEC corners here is going to make a big difference. And if I can see that continue, I definitely think that's where I'll get closer to that good route running. I'm attributing a lot of it to he's just too fast for these corners. And unfortunately, that's probably going to continue a lot, but SEC corners tend to have an elevated competition and better coaching. from what we've seen from the ACC in the last few years. And anytime he touches the ball, he's electric. I mean, I can't wait for, all summer to hear how he's going to be the next Debo, just because he ran the ball a few times. It's going to be fun. But yeah, if we can, my concern is, and I think Auburn will go away from it because I do think Jackson Arnold's a good enough quarterback. I think they'll give him more of responsibility here. I think he's going to have an improved route tree, but I don't want to see 10 screens a game. Like, I don't want to see, what we saw the downfall of Luther Burden become, of just, we can't get the ball to him past 2 yards. So why do I care? I need to see just a bit more, because at least Burden, we got to see that open up, and then it just kind of retreated back with the offense going worse and worse. Now he's getting an upgrade in the offense. I need to see more, and I think he has that opportunity. He should explode, and with his speed, I mean, we've seen this year in, year out. The fast receiver goes higher than he probably should have. Obviously, we saw it with Worthy. I think we can see that kind of rise from him on a better offense, and he should excel at this team.
When I go through the numbers, it's weird. Like when you look at his receiving depths too, like they're pretty well spaced out. Like he got basically 22 targets, deep, medium, short, and behind the line of scrimmage. But the quarterback play, I think, was the thing for the deep part. But I will say, to your point about Lemon, I don't know if Singleton's 5'11" either, or 5'10". Like that's the thing. Like, I think that's the question, is like, and I could see Singleton coming back. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's going to come out this year. Whereas I think like Makai will lean, yes, he'll come out, where Singleton, I don't know if he's going to get enough buzz to where you're excited about him coming out if you're in there. And again, if Auburn, there's a lot of rumors right now that Auburn's falling apart behind the scenes. So if that's the case, like if Hugh is falling apart over there, the head coach Hugh Freeze, and this thing comes off the rails the first 4 weeks of the season, like we could be talking about like, what the hell are we going to do with this kid? And if he comes out, I think that just adds these question marks to the issues there. From a receiving standpoint, he's fine, but he's day 2 to me, right? Like grade wise, like I don't. Yeah. He's not close to a day 1 grade for me. So that's kind of where he's at. It's just going to be hard because he's going to be lining up next to a kid named Cam Coleman. And if you don't know who Cam Coleman is, just go, YouTube it. He's a behemoth of a man. And that guy just looks like an NFL receiver. And then you sit next to Singleton, and you're just like, oh, yeah, that guy's cute. So that's just kind of the differences between the guys on that roster. Another guy with some question marks, Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Out there in terms of, was Jeremiah Smith before Jeremiah Smith became Jeremiah Smith. So Carnell Tate was a very sought after recruit out of Chicago to go to Ohio State. It was very like, hey, this kid's going to bring us to that next level. And while he's been okay, he has definitely not hit like what they maybe thought he was going to be. So his freshman year, 264 yards and a touchdown, a loaded wide receiver room. We know what Ohio State has. Last year as a sophomore, 52 catches, 733 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And the easy assumption is to say, well, he's just going to take that next step. Jeremiah Smith would be the 1-2 punch there. It's just hard in that room to really dictate where the targets are going to go. They have Mylan Graham, who's very, very good, doing great things in the spring. Brandon Ennis is still there. They have Quincy Porter. They have a lot of guys in that room. They have a question mark at quarterback right now. Julian Sayin, possibly. Lincoln Keenholz, possibly. Tavion St. Clair, maybe. Like, there's some question marks going on there. So where's that production come from? I think that's the interesting part. And really down the stretch, he kind of faded in some games. Like, we didn't really see him against Oregon, Tennessee, Notre Dame. Like, didn't have big games there. Offensive grade 70.1, receiving grade 70.6, under 2 yards per route run. He's at 1.91, which that's a red flag in terms of like his profile overall. He's a big kid though, so he's opposite of some of these small guys that we've been talking about. 6'3", 191, so he does carry it a little different. He does got good hands. Like when you even go to the high school tape, I mean, he had it. He's had that since he's played as a prospect. And from the route running perspective, pretty underrated. Can create separation when needed. It's hard though because he's always going against the third, fourth corner these last couple of years. Like, that's the other issue with Ohio State is when you got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Jeremiah Smith, you have Emeka Egbuka, you have all these guys. well, Tate is left one-on-one in a lot of situations with some good, questionable corners, right? Especially before the Big Ten expanded. So that's something to note there. Physicality, he's not a physical guy. I think that's one thing. Ball tracking, production, the question marks I already kind of mentioned there. Christian, when you dived into the tape, did you come away impressed, less impressed? What were your feelings on Tate?
I was kind of bummed, honestly. I was hoping for more. I watched a lot of Ohio State games live. I live in Columbus, and if I don't have anything to talk about at work sometimes. So I guess my thing is I always felt like Carnell Tate wasn't productive because of the nature of the offense, and part of that could be true. He was the wide receiver 3. And really like the target 4 in that offense with Travion Henderson included. So like he was a tertiary option, but when you watch the film, there's a reason. Like he probably could have earned more targets, but I don't know if it's laziness or if it's just, he just didn't do anything outstanding. There was not a single thing on his film that I was like, yeah, that was really good. That's what separates him from others. Yeah. Even we're going to talk about another player that's now in the Big Ten that has a similar size, skill set type of deal that I prefer over Carnell Tate by a pretty significant margin. So you'd love to say, oh, he'll take the next step, but I think he's taking the same role. I don't think he's getting more targets necessarily, because it sounds like Brandon Inniss and Mylan Graham are going to get a lot of the Emeka Egbuka role. And so I'm curious to see what that means for Tate if he just kind of levels off it, and maybe he gets 900 yards, maybe he gets 1,000 yards. I don't really care about that. What I care about is there's just a lot of okay things on film, and I think he's best as a wide receiver 2 at the NFL level. And I was hoping to see the traits and everything that dictate. I mean, he's got the size to be a true X wide receiver. I was hoping for like a T. Higgins, a Nico Collins type thing. And I don't know if I see that really with him.
That's so funny you said T. Higgins. I'll let Randy jump in. But I was like, when I wanted to watch, when I was watching him, I was like, I want this kid to be T. And I came away with Keon Coleman. Like I literally was like, this kid's T. And I turned on the tape. I'm like, shit, he's Keon Coleman. Like that's kind of how I came away from it. But I mean, I think his ceiling could be T, because I do think he has like incredible athleticism, and I do think that he can really kind of just the size, maybe, because I know T's like 220 and he's not any close to that. But if he can get some size up there, but I just came away with Keon. Where'd you come away with, Randy?
I feel like I'm just going to keep echoing, and I don't like to do that necessarily, but the hands are great. And like Kevin said, we've seen that all the way through. I really liked early on in the season. It felt like Tate was, for some reason, it felt like he was the go-to, and he saved a lot of drives, it felt like. And like you guys pointed out, that went away for some reason down the epic stretch of the playoffs, where we saw more of that from, the tight end. We saw more of that from Egbuka, obviously. And then, the huge plays are always going to come from the best player, but you needed this other option. And early on, when the offense was figuring it out, Tate was that guy a lot of the times. And I think effort and talent won out, and that went away. I do think I agree with Christian. I don't know if it's laziness necessarily, but it's a classic thing with receivers, especially these type where it's, the best receiver in the class, 5-star type, where you're option 3 on that clipboard and you're just not giving the effort we need. And the effort we expect at this point from wide receivers at Ohio State with the coaching and the, what has been developed there, you would expect a little bit more. And I just think that might be why he's not moving up the depth chart as he should, because with his route running, with his hands, with his overall talent, he's good after the catch, very physical and aggressive, and he's not like twitched up by any means necessarily, but he gets everything done that you really want. We have not as physical as you'd hope, and that's because, again, at times it just feels like he takes a play off with the physicality too. It's weird, but everything that we see on all the trades and what we see on the film with the route running, And what he's done in the intermediate, finding the soft spots and zones, he should be taking over that Ibuka role and thriving.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what should happen. He should be the red zone option because that's what the offense uses. But he just vanished in the biggest moments down the stretch, and that has to completely change because he's not going in the first with that, and he's not going in the early second. What's expected as receivers from Ohio State here is effort. Even the guys that didn't shine at Ohio State all the time. I mean, Terry McLaurin was a good Ohio State receiver, but he wasn't the best on the team. It felt like at the time. Then he got to the NFL and was like, oh, crap, yeah, he kind of was, wasn't he? He just didn't get all the looks that he could have gotten. But we're just not seeing that. You're good.
Almost just died. I almost just died from something that fell behind me.
Couldn't see it in the peripheral. Crazy.
That was Carnell Tate just pissed.
Carnell Tate's pissed out.
It's a ghost. Right now, It's the ghost of his hype behind you. It's crazy. Yeah, but so I need more effort because, again, he's not super twitched up. He's not overly, strong and dominant in that regard. He doesn't have the long speed to just have that all over his game as well. So a receiver of this stature and kind of quality of what we've seen with the route tree, effort is what's going to make you an NFL starting receiver, a top end wide receiver 2, fighting to be wide receiver 1, which is what T. Higgins is. And we don't see that effort.
Yeah. He's got a little Pickens in him, like attitude wise, maybe. And like maybe that's where like you got to get nervous because he has some physical tools. And then it's like, okay, where's that? I think maybe that's why Mylan Graham, like they talk about Mylan Graham being like this just in the gym type of dude. Maybe that's why he's overtaking him though. Like maybe that's like he's just showing up every day and just working. And that just gives me concern about a prospect that you're like, well, production hasn't necessarily been there, kind of fell off a little bit. Like that's kind of where I am with Tate. Could be super talented though. I mean, he could hit his ceiling, and that's one of those things that we always have to mention is like, hey, they could get better. It just feels like if you're in the best room, in the best development room of guys that just get produced in the NFL, why aren't you trying harder? Why aren't you doing that? And that's just something to note there. All right, let's get to the old guy. Kind of, I guess he's an old guy because he's a 4th-year guy. Antonio Williams out of Clemson. So 5'11", 190. From just a receiving standpoint, really broke out as a true freshman. 58 catches or 56, 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. They got injured his sophomore year, so had that sophomore slump. Only played in 5 games. He had 200 yards there. Can't take that away from him in terms of injury. But he bounced back last year. 75 catches, 900 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And some thought he might come out. Like there was some talk about him coming out. Honestly, wouldn't probably been a horrible thing for him. But he goes back to school with a 72.6 receiving grade, over 2 yards per route run, 74.1 offensive grade. With him, he's a very classic slot guy, but it's weird because he does play outside a little bit for their offense. The way it works, he's basically 60-40 there. But I do think he works the best in the slot when he does play out there and when he creates separation there. But he earns a ton of targets. He had 100 targets this last year for K. Klubnik and Clemson there. Really good route runner. I think when he's been that since his freshman year. Like he can create routes. He's done that great with DJU. He made DJU look pretty good his freshman year. I mean, and that's something because even DJU couldn't underthrow him, overthrow him, whatever. Antonio caught it. Very strong hands too, especially in traffic. This kid catches a lot of things when he's about to get popped in the face going over the slot, especially over the middle from the slot. Like he holds on to the football and pretty creative, like very creative in space and those type of things. Again, with him, okay, 5'11", 190. Is he that size, physicality? Slot only is going to hurt him from a ceiling perspective, from a draft day grade. And in his release, yeah, when you watch his release and you see that against physical corners, that's something I think that he's gotten better at. I think last year probably was his best year for that. But that is also just something to note there. Did have some drops this last year though. And a lot of it probably was just because of how many targets he got. And again, Cade wasn't the most accurate guy this last year. So I don't know how we attribute drops sometimes get weird when you're looking at PFF numbers and those type of things. But again, what's funny, kind of how we talked about with Singleton, I don't know if he's the 2nd or 3rd best player, or he's probably the 3rd best wide receiver on this team, possibly 4th, but he's in there because they got some guys. Bryant Wesco's there, TJ Moore is there, and then even Ford, right? Or Tyler Brown, excuse me.
Tyler Brown.
Ford came from Tyler Brown. So yeah, those guys are pretty good there. Christian, with the tape you popped on, for me, very solid wide receiver 3 type. Did you get anything else from that?
I think he can be a 2 for a team. It that's the big question. Like him and Singleton are in the same boat where it's like, I mean, they're not going to stand out. I don't think that Antonio Williams is going to do anything to stand out amongst his peers, and that could be problematic for him. I do want to just throw it out there that when he was a recruit and him and Adam Randall were coming in together, everyone was like all over Adam Randall. And shout out to Antonio Williams for like being a good enough receiver to not have to switch to running back because that was crazy. But
Adam Randall propaganda was big, man. That was
it was huge.
It was huge out there.
But Dabo, he likes building through recruits, and I think Antonio has been a successful recruit for him. I just think, in trying to find a comp for him, I struggle. A lot of these guys, these slot receivers, are very, very similar. In that they're probably now, like you said, he played outside a little bit. His grades against man just not that good. And when he caught the ball against both man and zone, he just didn't create a whole lot after the catch as much as you would want to. Yes, he's creative in space, but and maybe that was a product of Cade Klubnik putting the ball on his back hip and him not having an opportunity to turn upfield all the time. But I don't know. I struggled with Antonio because I think he can be a wide receiver too, but we're going to need to see a pretty significant jump. And I think he'll probably be 3rd in targets this year, if I had to guess. So I just don't know if I see it. I think he'll declare, and I think he'll be a day 2 pick. I think he can be a reliable option. This is a kid that he's got the frame. Like we keep talking about Makai Lemon has to put on weight and Eric Singleton has to put on weight. Antonio Williams has the best frame for it. I think he could get up to 205, 210 even, and be a starting outside wide receiver and be more involved in an NFL offense. But just I wanted to be higher on him than I was, I guess.
So again, it's very early, so comps really is not my favorite thing to do. But coming away from the tape, I saw what you're saying with the framework and what we can get up to. If he gets up to that point and keeps growing with the release packages, because I did see some good, hard jab steps and good handwork to get out at times, but it did come against him a good amount of times against the physical corners. But upside, he can get up to Chris Godwin to me. He's got the frame for it. Mm-hmm. He's a good route runner. One of the best. I don't think he's top 2, but I think he's in contention for that 3rd spot. Great strong hands and creative in space. I think he can get up to that. But right now, I think he's just, it sounds weird because it's not that far removed, but he's just like the 2025 Hunter Renfrow for me. He's going to be a consistent option for them. He gets open, especially in the out routes, which was Renfrow's specialty at Clemson and won him a national title on a play. So I saw it a lot. That the out route from him is crazy. It's his best route by far, which would make you think the slant is a little bit better than it is at times. But because if it's that good on the outside, you have to be able to make the same break on the inside. But I think he clearly has the timing worked out. I think we should have an increased trust with Klubnik this year. I think he's going to be the steady chain mover. And all you're going to see is he's going to finish with the same kind of stat line. But at the end of the day, he's going to get the touchdowns again, double digits. And every Clemson game you see, and they're going to have a good amount of big games this year, he is going to be the one moving the ball down the field. It might not, 1st and 2nd down, he might not touch it, but in 3rd and 3, they're not going anywhere else. And I think that is a good thing to be a receiver, and especially wide receiver 3 that has the potential to be a wide receiver 2. It's just a little bit more nuance, a little bit bigger frame and physicality. You can get up to that Goblin level where you could be a wide receiver 1 really for a team in the NFL. But right now, we're not at that aspect.
I kind of like that. I like that comp actually for him. That's a good comp. I think that if he's there, I think your point about him being an excellent route runner makes sense because teams will love that about him. Who do you like more, Jalen Noel or Antonio Williams, Christian?
From last year's film, no. I think his explosiveness out of the slot was a little more impressive. I think he's a better athlete, just by a little bit, but that was his 4th year. So, in the Jay Stein world, I should be comparing what Noel did in 2023 to Antonio Williams. But I think Antonio Williams can get in that same range, but that's about where I expect him to be drafted too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's just interesting. I think those two guys they have interesting similarities in terms of what they are as prospects. And they kind of look the same, stocky little guys. All right, let's get into one guy that I like a lot. Dane Key, transfer over from Kentucky. Been mulling around in Kentucky for far too long, for 3 years. 6'3", 210 pounds. Jumps over to Nebraska. Dylan Raiola is the quarterback over there. Matt Rule's the head coach. It looks like they got something maybe cooking a little bit on that offensive side. When you're looking at what he's done the last 3 years, very consistent, over 500 yards each season. Was much better than his counterpart, Barian Brown, who got a lot more plug than he did in terms of like what he was as a receiver. This last year, 47 catches, 700 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Overall, when you're looking at him, like 81.6 receiving grade, very solid player, and a big guy, big frame, what you like to see there. Very, very good at catch point because of that frame. He does a great job of boxing out defenders. He does a great job of going up and getting the football. And his tape is a lot of fun to watch. Like I probably had more fun watching Dane Key catch passes than probably anybody else on this list. Like, and I have, like, he's been very underrated. I actually really wanted him to come out last year. Like, I really was like, hey, that would be awesome to see Dane Key come out, because I think he does a lot of great things that teams are going to like. Excellent ball tracking. He's one of the toughest players on this list. That you cannot talk about Dane Key without toughness. This kid just loves football. And so those old school scouts, we know those guys, the money ball guys, right? They're going to love this kid because this dude will block your ass through the stands. He's going to go up and get the football, and he wants to win. Like, these are the things that really stand out about him as a player. As far as, what are the things that he probably needs to work on, or some areas of weaknesses of his, inconsistent release at times, not much of a threat after the catch. He really is a catch point guy, goes up and gets it, and then that's it, really. When you see that, I think it works in the red zone. I think there are things that it works for, but you'd like to see him be a little bit more active there. But again, it was Kentucky's offense, which was not great when he was there either. The quarterback play was not great either. And so that's part of it. And even if Will Levis was there, you can give me the Will Levis argument. He was not good. We told you he was not good, and we were right, by the way. Routes need to be crisper. Randy's going to tell you that. I mean, that's one thing with him. He definitely wins on athleticism, catch point, goes up and gets it. And really, he's got the basketball background as well. So, like, that's part of his game too. He just goes up there. What is our takeaway, Randy, on Dane? How do you feel about Dane Key out there in Nebraska now?
See, this is the Keon Coleman. That's why I was like, are you going to kid me? I will say I'll give him some credit running wise. I think he's above average, and the stems, especially going deep, which is where he wants to live anyways, is pretty good. I think he does a good job of creating those kind of windows in zone with that. But again, offense up and down. But what the ball going to him is a game changer. Is just the best way I could put it. Saw some really good back shoulder catches as well. I think with down the stretch for this next year, with more comfortability with Raiola, I think he could be a top end target as we're getting down the stretch. I'm not quite sure how Nebraska is going to be doing this year. There's a lot of hype going into last year that they'd be in contention for the conference title. I'm not sure if we're still thinking the same kind of things this year. I'd like to just see some improvement. I think Dane Key, God, I really did not mean to set myself up for a pun there, is really the key to that. I just think he can kind of unlock a lot of what the problem with Raiola is. Right now, we see a lot of the flash that he wants to be Patrick Mahomes so bad. But Patrick Mahomes does a great job of really settling down in not having to live in the chaos. And we haven't seen that from Raiola a lot. And what he does in those times with the back shoulder throws and throwing it up when he just needs to this kind of receiver, I think Key can unlock that. I'm really trying not with the puns, I swear. I think he can really help this offense build through that. And the physicality in the blocking is elite. It's what I love to see. He's going to probably one of my favorite players, unfortunately, because of all that. If we can just unlock some of the route running, he's going to be my favorite receiver. That's really the issue. I think he might be one of the best. I kind of have him as an X. I still think he's a little bit of a Z, but because he doesn't have the full versatility, even though he did kind of move around. I just don't think the kind of athlete he is and how he wins right now when the route running, I don't think he's really a true slot besides just a big slot making plays there.
Yeah.
In those kind of short to intermediate where you just need 3 yards. I think he can make a good play there, just be physical. But I do expect to see a big growth from him. And he's one of the guys that I have clearly as a day 2, maybe early day 3 even right now. But one more level, and we're getting into that first round contention because of the size and what he does at going for the ball.
Yeah. I mean, he lives in the catch point, but I was more impressed by his comeback routes and everything that he can vertically stem and then stop and come straight back. All of that stuff is some of the best in the class. I mean, you watch the film and he's consistently open, and I think it's because teams just anticipated him going vertical. And I don't even think he's the speediest player in the world.
No,
Like, I think he's probably like a 4.5 40 type of guy, but because he's so good in those catch point situations, everyone was kind of giving him leverage so that they could have a head start in maybe winning that. He's not one where you say, he makes 50-50s, 80-20s, but he does make them like 65-35s. And I think that that's an impressive trait to have. He's the one that, like, when I watch Carnell Tate, I want him to play like Dane Key. And so that's where, like, I have Dane Key pretty, I mean, not comfortably, but like pretty far ahead of Carnell Tate in the rankings. It's not that far, but like, what's up, Brittany?
I was gonna say he's had the opportunity to do that more though. Like,
True.
I really don't want to give Tate as much like benefit of the doubt as I do, but it's so much harder. Like, Dane Key isn't really touching the field that much if he came into Ohio State's offense this year. It's just not. It's just hard, or at least I'll say last year. Sorry.
Yeah.
To be fair.
I mean, and that's at Nebraska. Dane Key's going to get a ton of targets. I mean, you just look at their wide receiver depth chart, and he's very clearly the best one there. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. I want to see better in breaking routes. I want to see, quicker wins. I would love to see it. Press doesn't concern me with Dane Key, though. Like, I think if he can get off the line of scrimmage, we're in fine shape. Exciting player, man. I think he's way better than Berrien Brown. And I know, like, everyone hypes up Berrien Brown for the speed and everything. And not to put the kid down, I don't even think I might have put him on the honorable mentions, but like, when I watched that film, it was like so clear who the better player was to me.
Well, I think the difference is Dane Key's a wide receiver, and with Berrien Brown, with these guys, even Zachariah Branch is part of that, is they're the track guys, right?
Yep.
We talked about that. And I mean, it's hard to kind of go that. The one last note on Dane Key that I want to make a point. He's very good at the boundary. Like, he knows to get his feet in. He catches it very well out there. Like, it's pretty impressive. Like, he knows there. And in some of the numbers, like receiving depth wise, in the medium range where he is at, he had a 97.3 receiving grade. He had 41 targets in that range, 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was the first down marker. Like, that is where they went when they needed a first down in that offense. And that is the boundary guys. That's the over the middle stuff. And he is not afraid to get just whapped there. And he has 0% drop percentage in that range. He didn't drop the football between 10 to 20 yards. Just didn't do it. So that's why I do think he's going to get up there a little bit higher than people think. And honestly, I think I have him too low. Like, I think I have him too low in my rankings too, because I think he could be a top 3 kid in this class if he continues to develop. And Dylan Raiola stops being Patrick Mahomes, or maybe starts being Patrick Mahomes, but stop acting like Patrick Mahomes.
Stop trying to be.
Stop trying to be. Just be you, kid. Just be you. Let it go. Just like Christian let his hair go. All right, let's go into honorable mentions here. Let's dive into this. There's a lot of dudes on this list, so we'll kind of go through some. I'll have the guys pick maybe 1 or 2 they like. Denzel Boston at Washington is getting a little plug out there. Eugene Wilson III at Florida. Super fast kid that I like a lot, but just got to stay healthy. Just banged up, like just getting banged up out there. Berrien Brown at LSU now. He was at Kentucky, transferred to LSU. Josh Cameron at Baylor. My biggest thing is why the hell are you wearing number 34? It drives me absolutely crazy.
I thought he was a running back.
I know.
You told me to watch him, and I was like, "Who am I watching?"
I can't do it, man. It kills me. Elijah Sarratt, I think is how you say it, at Indiana, wide receiver. Jaden Greathouse is a great call out here at Notre Dame. I like him a lot more than people think. And we got Noah Thomas on this list as well. Randy, anybody catch your eye that you watched that you're like, hey, I want to kind of just talk about this kid?
I think Elijah Sarratt can really do a lot of great things this year. Obviously, Indiana getting a new quarterback. I think a little bit more athletic, not having a destroyed knee might allow this offense to be a little bit better this year, even after a great season last year. And I think Sarratt can kind of exploit that to use just he's very good with his hands. The intermediate, I think he's going to continue to win. I think he could have kind of the rise that we saw from Trey Harris, is how I would put it. So I'm not going to go into super because I haven't watched a ton of them yet. But and obviously we need to see this year in this offense a little bit better. But again, another guy that's a little bit, the size, we have the X receiver possibility, but he's not a track star either. So he fits into this class very well where we know what he's going to be. And if we can just see a little bit more unlock there and be a bigger red zone threat and improve some areas, I think he could really shine.
Yeah, I like Sarratt. I actually have been talking about him for a while now, and I put Jay Stein onto him, and then he's been Jay's favorite player, I think, because I think he hits a lot of metrics as far as the analytics community goes. But the film's good. I mean, he's a strong player. Like he's one of those guys where he actually reminds me of who the hell's the wide receiver that's on the Patriots? Mac Hollins. He and Mac Hollins have a very similar style of game, and that's valuable. There's a reason Mac Hollins is getting more targets than fantasy managers want every year, and it's because he does a lot of the little things and can move the chains really well. Do I have to just pick one? I kind of want to talk about two.
You can talk about whoever you like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Eugene Wilson, you talked about it. I think this kid's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
He probably runs in the 4.2s when he's healthy. I think his routes probably the best in the class. But like Antonio Williams and like Eric Singleton, I don't know if he's the best receiver on his team anymore. And after watching Dallas Wilson, the freshman, I can guarantee he's not the best wide receiver on his team. That kid is a stud. But man, his skill set doesn't really fit what DJ Lagway does either. So I'm curious to see how it works out. But Eugene Wilson's your traditional slot. I think he's going to be an absolute stud if he can stay healthy. I think he probably stays one more year though. So we're probably going to be talking about him for a while. The other one I want to talk about is Noah Thomas. So I watched Noah Thomas and I was thinking, I'm probably not going to like him, but I'll throw the film on. 6'5". I think he was listed as 6'6" at Texas A&M. Goes to Georgia. He's now 6'5". Funny how that works. 205, I think, is what he's listed at. Incredibly flexible, fluid athlete. Guy that can get open with his routes instead of just his athleticism and size. Great at the catch point. Super lanky, super long arms. Nervous about the playing time and the quarterback. I mean, it sounds like Colby Young is back. He probably should have made this list. He got suspended last year. He beat someone up. I don't know. Got suspended for the whole year, but he is projected to play over Noah Thomas as of right now. So we'll see how that wide receiver rotation goes. But I really like Noah Thomas. I think he's probably like a day 3, maybe late day 2 guy right now. But if we see a big year out of him, if he kind of takes a step forward, I think we could talk about him as a top 75 pick, maybe. So,
okay, I like that. Anybody else, Randy?
I'm kind of excited for Barian Brown just to see what he'll do at LSU.
Yeah.
Are we going to be shocked if he has 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns with Nussmeier in this offense? You're going to one of the 2 wide receiver universities. We might see something more than we've seen from him. And that's going to make him a draft eligible. I mean, just the LSU helmet on him is going to raise his stock a bit, but I could see some big things from him. I just have I've seen the floor more than the ceiling on him right now.
Yeah. So there's a couple guys that didn't make the list that I do, I want to shout out. But first, I really think there's a Lad McConkey in this list, and I think it's Jaden Greathouse from Notre Dame. Like, I think Jaden can be that because from an athleticism perspective and what he can do, he's bigger than Lad, obviously. I think he's bigger than Lad. I would imagine he's bigger than Lad, just from a weight perspective. But what he can do in the intermediate routes, I mean, he's so solid. I mean, his receiving grade, when you're looking at what he was able to put out there, like over 90, he averaged like a 94 receiving grade when he did it. Behind the line of scrimmage would kind of kill them, but anything after that, like he had a 98.1 receiving grade, 20 plus yard throws deep well. Like he can do that, and he's zone guy. Like he's going to break every zone that you have. He's a super athlete. Like this kid is a super athlete. So anybody that could have like a Lad McConkey type rise with actual production. I mean, Jaden had production. Like that's the thing. Like Lad didn't necessarily have that because of injuries, but this year, I mean, he had 592 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's still a young kid. He's only been there 2 years. This is his 3rd year. He's a true junior. But down the stretch is the games that he had. The Penn State and Ohio State game. I mean, that's where he had basically half of his production, those 3 touchdowns. If he can duplicate that and be that guy in this offense, I know he's banged up in the middle of the year. I mean, Jaden can be a huge riser in this class.
What do you think he'll run? 40 was?
Well, that's where I don't know if the Lad thing would definitely be the comp for him. I think from a play style, I think you'd be excited if he ran a 4.5.
Yeah. That's where I struggle.
Yeah.
That's what I really, really struggle with him. Cause like I wrote notes. I don't write notes all that often because I just kind of remember. But when I watched him, I was like, which I must have forgotten that I watched Eugene Wilson because I think he's probably the best route runner in the class. But I wrote comfortably the best route runner in the class, but he can't pull away from athletic DBs. So I'm not sure it matters. Like when he's really attacking, there's a reason he only had 9 deep targets. Like he was great when he did it, but I think he can be a power slot. This is the Amon-Ra St. Brown to me. I think that's a better comp in that, like, I think he's going to feast in the short and intermediates. I really like him, but I just like, he can't run a 40. When they are like, hey, do you want to run? He's got to say no, because I think that would kill his stock.
Yeah, just don't run, buddy. Like just don't run. Just say you're not gonna go there. But I do think that like he could have a rise there. Maybe he does get better in terms of like I know he was banged up in the middle of the year. Like and it was a lower body injury. So like, maybe that has something to do with it there. The other guy I do want to mention briefly, Isaiah Horton is out there. He's at Alabama now. He's kind of getting some run. Jeremy Bernard is out there at Alabama. But overall, just a lot of question marks.
Can I give you a deep name?
Sure.
Eric Rivers, FIU transferred to Georgia Tech to take the Eric Singleton role. A lot of Erics in this class. 3 Erics? That's crazy because Eric McAllister at TCU too. Eric Rivers, I don't know if he's any good because he played at FIU. If I'm being completely honest, like I watched it and I was like, oh, he gets open and he's super athletic. And I did see some buzz about him though, so maybe I'm not crazy. I'm curious to see how he does in the ACC is all I'll say. I think right now he's like definitely a day 3 guy. But I think he could be one of those guys. When I was watching him, I was like, man, this is Zay Flowers. And if we get maybe even he's older, so that's the problem. I don't even think he has eligibility left after this year. I'd love to see 2 years of him in the ACC, but there's some people that I think are going to be high on him. He's a really good route runner, fun player.
Yeah, it's just hard when you go to those small school guys and then
I know
they go to Georgia Tech, and we just talked about Georgia Tech not being very good either. Like why don't we just keep shouting out names? We got time. I really like Kevin Coleman from Missouri. Shout out Kevin Coleman. I got to put your name out there because I've been watching you play for the last few years. But Missouri, I mean, that's one of those things. I do think realistically there's a name to watch. His name, well, there's 2. Tyler Brown at Clemson, I still like. And DeAndre Moore Jr. from Texas. He's a sleeper because I think that DeAndre Moore might be like the wide receiver 2 on Texas, or maybe earn some wide receiver 1 type targets and numbers out there. And he's kind of just sneaking out there. Chase Soul from Iowa State too, another Iowa State kid that Randy's going to love once he watches them. Like those are the type of guys that definitely could maybe rise up out there in terms of like, value wise. It's an interesting class because I do think there's a couple guys out there that we're not even talking about that are probably going to get in the top 5, like just based on, hey, production, lack of the top names at the top, those type of things.
All right. While we're at it, one more. Nick Anderson, transfer from Oklahoma to LSU. Really good sophomore year. Injuries are a big problem. I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, but I think it was a hip injury that knocked him out. And that
he missed quad. It was like a quad. I'd say like a tear. It was a pretty bad tear though.
Yeah. So we haven't seen him play since then. I don't know what he's going to be, but like his skill set matches Nussmeier better than Barry and Brown. And even probably, Aaron Anderson's another name. Like this whole LSU group, I'm curious to see who separates themselves. Anderson is a 4th year, so he's probably declaring. He's just a small boy. So I like Nick Anderson because he's not necessarily a small boy, but yeah, you love Aaron Anderson, Kevin.
I don't know. Yeah, I must. I think I talk about it so much that I just forgot to talk about him on this show. I think Aaron Anderson is a day 3 guy. I want everybody to be clear there. Like I think he could have day 2 numbers. Like I think he could be kind of that guy. He earns a ton of targets for Nussmeier there. Him and Mason Taylor were the two basically guys in that offense. He's a slot guy though, 99% of the time. So like he's going to be that slot range. And I hate it because it just kind of hurts their ceiling overall. But I think if Aaron does have another good year, it would not shock me to see Aaron Anderson be the wide receiver 1 at LSU. So if that happens, I think that we have to start talking about him and Nussmeier offense. The LSU, we did rankings, me and Christian, in terms of top 25 recently. LSU is a hard team to rank because I don't know what they are defensively, but offensively, they're probably a top 5 group. So when you look at it that way, when you look at those pieces there, but to your point about Anderson in there, I mean, he's basically Kyron Lacy, what Kyron Lacy was to that offense last year. I think that's what he can be in that offense. But there's a lot of guys in that weird round day 3 grade that could pop off.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, I mean, I'd say like 5 or 6 to like 16 right now are all about the same.
Yeah.
Not a lot of things standing out from anyone besides, okay, this guy's a track star, but that's 1 of 7 of this class. This guy's a possible X, but we haven't seen it fully. That's 1 of 7 of this class. So there's not a lot to stand out so far. The biggest concern I have for this class is we're going to have too many people early declare that should go back. Simply because they understand they can't go into the next draft class and be even mentioned.
No.
Yeah. There's 2 guys that are going to get talked about and no one else matters.
Yeah.
So
and really 4. Really,
I know there really is 4. Yeah.
Because Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo are going to be in that group.
Yeah. We're going to get, it might be like the best receiver draft class if we could continue to see the progression we've already seen from the early freshmen or redshirt freshmen for the 27 class. So I think this class is going to be a little bit just oversaturated with not top end talent. And that's going to be the question marks of, okay, yeah, they got drafted, but
yeah,
do we care?
That is a really good point. I honestly, like, if we're being real in terms of like where you have some of these guys in 2027, I would probably take 7 wide receivers over my wide receiver 1 for the 2026 class.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Nick Marsh is out there at Michigan State, Wingo, Wesco, Moore at Clemson, Cam Coleman.
I forgot about Wesco.
You're talking about Mylan Graham at Ohio State, who possibly could be bouncing up right now. And then there's some guys out there at the wide receiver, like Micah Hudson, didn't do anything, but maybe he bounces back this year. Malcolm Sibbons at Auburn is very, very good too. He doesn't get talked about a lot. Perry Thompson at Auburn doesn't get talked about a lot out there. There's a lot of wide receivers that you're like, this class is loaded. But honestly, like just going through the top 7, I think I think it's a toss up between Mylan Graham because we don't know what the production is going to look like for him. Like let's say you have Jordyn Tyson at 1. That group is insane. And when you're talking about, a lot of these guys, like if I'm sitting here and I'm Eugene Wilson, I'm going out, baby, because if I don't, where am I going to go next year? Like this year might be the year I sneak into a day 2. And that's going to be incredibly hard for like dynasty managers and stuff to navigate, because you're talking now about like, okay, is this guy even good, or what does the class look like?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones of that for me is Nick Harbor, just because we know he's an ungodly athlete. I mean, obviously, but we just haven't seen much. But now we're seeing really this will be the second year with Sellers. Can they both fully break out? And if they do they both come out or they both go back? And that's going to be just enormous question marks all year if we see actual development from Harbor besides just, hey, he's fast and he's a freak.
Yeah. Man,
we didn't even talk about Deuce Robinson, who fits that same damn category as Nick Harbor.
Yeah, it's true.
Well,
like
and that's
Florida State
Deuce Robinson, Evan Stewart, Jacoby Lane. Like they're still like those three
Evan
guys
Stewart's
probably need
done
to be
for
on
the
the
year, right?
Evan Stewart might be back for the playoff run, is what I've seen. It's very much so up in the air.
But Jacoby Lane's another one. We didn't even put him on this, but like Jacoby Lane, that dude just straight up earns targets. Now he's not going to separate worth shit. Like there's no separation in that kid's game. But I mean, that dude just earns targets in the red zone everywhere. I mean, I could see a team being like, oh, we've seen people look at Thornton. Remember he went around too. Like there's profiles that teams like. Jacoby's another one. Like I think while I think it's gross, the 2026 class wide receivers, I do think it's fun though, because there's so many guys that could just like, oh my gosh, pop off or grow. Like this class could get interesting if we see a lot of growth there. If the top guys take that next step, if Lemon and Tyson take a next step and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are legitimate wide receiver ones. And then you start talking about some of these honorable mention guys or guys like Dane Key, maybe having a really big year. Then you can start buying yourself into maybe the 2026 wide receiver class. Not as bad.
Yeah. Quickly, we talked about, Kevin said, I have 7 guys that would take over my wide receiver 1 in this class. We have those rankings available.
We do.
So I counted mine up. I have six ahead. So we have combined rankings. Join us on Patreon, folks, if you haven't heard us talk about it. We've got some new rankings dropping soon, too. So
we do. Please go just sub to us, because I'm gonna tell you right now, y'all, like a little behind the curtain, these new rankings are I almost didn't make it out alive. Like I was like, my eyes were bleeding. I'm pretty sure I tore my hamstring. I don't even know why. I was sitting the whole time, but like my hamstring is freaking gone. Like it was the most grueling process, but I think it's great the way we did it for you guys out there. If you guys do play any type of format in terms of college or NFL or anything like that, the combined rankings that we have for you coming. But it was a labor of love, as we call it there. So, and be on the lookout too. We'll wrap this up, but be on the lookout for next week's episode. We're also in the next week or so, Christian's dropping his projections for next year. We have a projection guide coming out with Dynasty takes for every single team. So we have that and our projections in terms, and they'll be evolving as we go. And we have a college football guide coming out. We're excited about that in the next month and a half. So we're busy bees over here, but stick with us as we dive into the summer scouting, and we kind of dive into next week into our next position.